Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, Mike. So, welcome everyone uh, to the conversation, a look behind quality content experiences. In this 1 hour, we are going to understand the efforts and strategy that goes behind those great content experiences. Maybe for technical documentation, you can imagine white papers, articles, which deliver not only information that is complete or information that is easy to follow for users to complete their task. But with ever evolving modern world, we see that the information is becoming readily available anywhere on any device or on any platform, right? And with that, all the backstage work is becoming tedious. And exactly this is where today our focus is to understand how that backstage work operates and what is the role of processes followed for that work, the information architecture used for the content, and the tools used to make all of this easy to manage by giving more control to the content contributors and hence improving the productivity, right? And then obviously getting the revenue or meeting the business goals. I want to talk through what these processes look like, or they used to look like historically, and then also paint a picture for you of what future might hold in this space. With that, I am Divraj Singh, Senior Solutions Consultant with Adobe Technical Communication. I have experience of about 13 years working in the content space and about 2.5 years in my role with Adobe here. Right. So what I will do is we'll first try to understand what determines the quality of content. Right. And it's easy to define the high quality documentation, training materials, or websites as you interact with people who lead the organizations or run the content or who actually run the content quality assurance. Or maybe you can get few definitions on web, right? But one of the most basic definition is how good or bad the content is, which defines the quality of the content, right? A key set of words, it's kind of a word cloud, which I came up with to understand what all factors or what all attributes actually contribute to the quality of the content experiences, right? But to assess or rate how good or bad the content is actually depends on so many attributes that it becomes hard to agree upon or determine, because each attribute may have a different scale or different meaning depending on organization, domain, industry, etc. Right? Because all of those attributes will not apply to all the industries or domains. Right? We have to identify the ones which are important to us. So the bottom line is these attributes are picked based on business goals and the value that the content is expected to get to the end users, based on which an organization can design the processes, acquire the tools, and adapt to the content architecture to achieve high quality content that is user focused and that can drive the revenue of the organization, right? And all these factors are important, but there are few aspects that are common to the content lifecycle of almost all organizations, right? And if we look at those, firstly, it is important that the content is regularly audited and reviewed, because quality content is so much more than catchy buzzword for marketers. It's one of the factors that search engines such as Google use to determine content rankings. Right? Spelling mistakes, typos, and broken links are not acceptable in this digital age, and you would be surprised at how often they occur. And we have seen those in our practical lives, like we have seen the websites showing broken links, etc. Right? So introducing a review process for your content is a great way of ensuring that your message is correct. Right? And then the second important aspect is consistent messaging. For example, if we take a marketing brochure, a product manual, and the product catalog on the website, all for a single product, would the average consumer be able to recognize that all of these are produced for same product or same brand? Right? That's an important part. each piece of standalone content should have the similar writing or vocal style, and the content be organized in the same way throughout on all the platforms. Right? And the third important aspect is that the content is delivered timely. Most often, while attaining the quality of the content, we get stuck in processes that lack tools to track the reviewer's work, or to assign review tasks to the reviewers with deadlines, or to incorporate the review comments received from multiple reviewers. Right? Each of those steps, right? Each step that we are talking about the review process causes a delay in the absence of processes and the tools. Right? With timely and effective review, the delivered content carries strong and clear message. Hence, end users will be benefited and the content contributors will be appreciated. Right? In this presentation, we will further explore the review and collaboration aspect, since all these factors can be controlled if a system has an effective review and collaboration in place. Right? And so before we actually deep dive into all of those things, what we want to understand is how does a typical content review process looks like. Right? So if I further explore a very basic example, right, of a review process, a very simple concept where we create the content and we send it for review so that a third person or a dedicated team of experts, right, they can take a look at the content or the updates made to the content and make sure the content has a clear and intended message for the end users. Right? The process can actually go into several iterations of review, comments, incorporation before the content is actually approved and published. Right? With each of the review process that is triggered on a piece of content, there is a lot of planning that goes behind. For example, the content that undergoes review has to be finalized. What content are we going to review? Right? We have to choose the piece of content which will be published. And the team that has to be, the team who will be actually reviewing the content, we have to onboard that team and make sure that the team is aware of the review process that has to be followed for that content. Right? And making them available to meet the desired deadlines. Right? And also defining the responsibility. Right? Those are very important aspects, and those actually play an important role so that you can do an effective and a timely review. Right? And considering it is so tedious and the time consuming process, some questions definitely needs to be answered. The questions related to review process that may actually lead us to understand how can we achieve efficiency for the stakeholders. How can we reduce the cost of the review process, and how can we improve the quality of the delivered content? Right? Some of the questions may be, why do I actually review the content? Right? Or what should I actually review? Right? We have to identify that. And finally, how do I review the content? Answers to these questions have to be driven by some measures, right? Which should be relatable to the quality of the content and efficiency of the content contributors, right? And to answer, we can say that to answer the why part of why do we need to review the content, it's actually driven by the business goals, which can be increasing the content value, right? Which can be, for some it could be a dollar value, for some it could be availability of the content over different mediums, right? And then gaining engaged consumers. How do you make sure that your content is getting popular? How are you trying to refresh the content, right? And improving the brand value, obviously, that's what ultimately we want. And if we think about what do we do or what do we actually review, it is completely driven by what experiences do we deliver, right? For the content that we author, how are we actually, or what experiences are delivered for that content? Whether it is a single format, which could be PDF output or multi-channel, or then it could be multi-format content as well, based on which the content storage, format, and categorization of the content in the authoring system is first defined. right? So you first categorize all that content properly so that you can easily deliver it. But then what are we reviewing is actually driven by what are we going to deliver. So it's whether it is just single format or multi-format, it's all dependent on that. And we will go into further details shortly. And the third one is how do we manage review of the content, which is driven by the processes followed and the tools used to complete the review of the content. Depending on the volume of the content, the frequency of the content updates, and the formats or channels to which the content is delivered, these tools and processes will have to become mature, right, in order to gain operational efficiency and actually reduce the time to market, right? And if we deep dive into each of those aspects or questions to understand why do we need to review the content, some reasons could be reviewing is an opportunity to add value and meaning to the experiences. Those experiences or the value can be very small or very large, but those have to be done so that we are sure that we are achieving or clarifying the content objectives, right? And there could be a lot of things around, like you need to fix the spell errors, etc. You need to fix those things in the content. Right. Thirdly, maybe people maybe they are actually in the habit of reviewing their own content, right, from their normal perspective. Sometimes you don't have a different set of team who actually does the review, right? By also seeing an experience from the perspective of others and by reviewing an experience through a variety of windows called reviewing techniques, people can escape from the normal vision, right? You break the silos. You learn from the bigger picture by understanding how the content looks like from others' experience, right? And more content on or more eyes on the content means that there is a broader view so that you can actually meet business objectives. And as more people gets involved, there are more ideas and references which are made for the content quality and for the content quality enhancement, right? So you encourage ideas between the team, and this actually builds trust between team members and bring them pride on the content value realization, right? And these are very few factors, and you can actually add more reasons to why do you actually want to review based on the business goals and objectives, right? So moving on to what do we need to review, it is very important to understand the experience in which the content is authored, right? That authored content will be delivered to various platforms or single platform. That's what we want to first understand. Imagining traditional content experiences where technical documentation, for example, used to be delivered in PDF or Word, where the deliverable for the consumer was a complete Word or a PDF document, right? You used to deliver the complete documents as it is for the technical documentation. However, with time, the end users became more powerful with the devices and the formats in which they actually can see the content, or they can see the same content in various platforms. That demands changing the content that a reviewer has to review. Right now, I cannot just be reviewing one format. I need to make sure that the same content is correct on all the platforms and all the formats. Right, working in traditional ways where the review happened on the content that carries along its presentation, which means if the content is delivered both in Word and a PDF format, then the reviewer will have to review both the content outputs, even though the content in them was same. Right. However, this approach will not only be complex, but it will be inefficient for reviewers who will have to do redundant efforts to review the content in all the formats. Right, and it is prone to errors because you might correct something in one format, but you forget to correct something in another format. Right, and then the reviewers and the authors lacks actually control in order to keep consistent messaging across all the delivery channels or formats, right? And if we look at, in contrast, better tools, or if we look at the other way of doing it, we can actually redefine how the content is managed, which can be actually free from the presentation layer, right? Because one should actually focus only on the content. And this is something which is an aspect or the attribute of structured content authoring. And DITA is one of the popular structured authoring choice that enables focus on the content by separating the presentation aspect from the content. Then we can avoid, obviously, all the complexities that we are talking about, right? Which means that the authors will review or the authors will actually send the content for review, and the reviewers can focus only on the content. And now, because since the content is free of presentation, that means I don't have to do the review multiple times. And even the authors will not have to spend efforts to author the same content multiple times in multiple formats, right? So you actually create content once, review once, but publish to any platform in any format, right? So the third piece to this is how to review, right? While we choose the content that we should review, it is most important to understand how we are reviewing the content. How does the workflow look like? And what tools do we use to enable the collaboration between the teams? Right. So one of the traditional processes was to manually review the content, which was still a tedious job because it was involving distributing the copies to the reviewers over email or through print, right? And then tracking the review progress. So the authors will have to track the review progress on his own because we were not using any tools as such. Collating the review comments from each of those reviewers, because the copies were distributed to the reviewers separately, then the authors will receive the comments separately, or from every reviewer the author will get a separate copy. So he has to collate those review comments, and then updating the source content and making sure the comments are incorporated as it was intended. Right? Even concerning when this review happens on hard copies, we waste a lot of paper, ultimately costing us a lot, which is not sustainable, not only for our business stakeholders, but also for writers who have to incorporate the review comments. Right? We can hit an example of technical documentation. Right? We have experienced customers talking about such a common workflow where the subject matter experts receive handwritten edits, manually incorporate the edits, and then they put those two technical editors' inbox, and the process continues. A lot of offline conversation is happening here, right? Over phone or over email, over verbally, right? Which cannot be tracked and audited, right? So there is no traceability to the process like this. Even in the best or the worst scenarios, a process like circulating a PDF over email to the bunch of people for review, the challenges there could be the receiver may not know what updates to make because there are no annotations or supporting documents along. And it is very hard for the author to track the progress even in such fashion. And you can imagine this will be impractical in today's world even, right? If the content has to be delivered in a single format, so the impracticalities can happen considering even in the usual scenarios. Forget about like today's scenario of COVID. In the usual scenarios that always existed in the content review, for example, tedious job of individually sending the documents to different reviewers and following up with them over email or phone to track the review progress. Right? The complexity also lies in the fact that each reviewer is then going to send review comments in a new copy, as I said, right? And the author has to incorporate those comments manually, right? And most importantly, if we look at today's world, with current COVID situation where people are working remotely and social distancing is a mandate, which means no more personal meetings so that I cannot actually remind someone that some work has to be done, right? Or I can neither hand over some printed documents to the reviewer teams, right? So we need new ways to work together. We need to collaborate, just like how we adapted to meeting people remotely by using Zoom or Adobe Connect or Microsoft Teams or Blue Jeans, Similarly, we have to think on how we can accomplish the challenges of content collaboration. So we need to really start thinking about how do we carry on particularly working on content and documents in a collaborative way without those meeting rooms to go over a document together, right? Some organizations do that. So we really need to innovate or adapt to the changing world and be productive using some tools and processes that are more suitable to these situations, right? And what I'm talking about is this, right? So we need tools that can take control from authors and reviewers to manage the content centrally. I'm not creating copies of Word or PDF files, keeping them offline on my system, on my emails. All the content lies in a central location on a server, which can be accessed online. Right? And then I allow creating projects and setting up deadlines for the project that I create, so that the reviewers or the users who are part of the collaboration, they are aware of the deadlines, right? And the authors can definitely create and assign review tasks to the team, right? And the system should also provide, or the tool should also provide dashboards to track the content updates and progress the review, right? And with these tools, authors specifically should be able to incorporate the review recommendations in the digital copy without having to manually type in the recommended changes, right? Simply like accept or reject the changes. That's how the tool should provide an interface. And then send the updated content for re-review within the same workflow. So he should not be, or the author should not be sending across the copies again or the updated copies again. The tool should give that kind of an update to the reviewer that your review comments have been incorporated. Please continue your review, right? And the reviewer should be able to collaborate with other reviewers, right? There could be multiple reviewers or a team who would want to talk to each other and then give a review comment. And not only with just the other reviewers, maybe the reviewers can also interact with the authors, asking why this content is written this way. Is there any supporting document, asking for more details, right? And be able to work in the same content copy. That's very important, because while the authors have created the content, the reviewer should not be given with another copy of the content. The reviewer should be marking or giving comments within the same copy of the content which is there in the system, so that everyone or all the collaborators or all the reviewers actually see the updated comments or content in the system, right? So and obviously one of the important aspects here is it's using one common tool, and it's also allowing you to author the content in a structured way, right? Because I'm not authoring anymore with a presentation layer. I'm not authoring in a PDF or in a Word document or any other format that binds the presentation to the content, right? The tool should allow you to author content in a structured way where the presentation is not binded to the content, right? So in summary, what we are saying is to achieve the desired business value, we need to use the right tools and processes, right? That's one thing. So we are talking about reviewing the content by capturing the feedback from other colleagues, meaning that an author sitting in India sending content for review to the reviewers working in Europe or Africa or other regions. While the project team is globally distributed, I should still be able to get real-time feedback on the content quality. And I want to track the tasks that are assigned to different people playing different roles on the project. I don't want the stack of papers on someone's desk without them being aware what to do with that stack, right? With the ability to track the content state based on document status, which is another attribute of structured authoring. You can know what state is there for the content that we are reviewing or the content which exists in the system. If the state is draft, which means it is still been worked upon by the content authors. If it is in review, then the reviewers are looking at it. If it is reviewed and approved and published, means the content has been reviewed and is available for the end user, right? And we need to do all that while being like working. We are working remotely, right? But we still want to enable the virtual togetherness so that we get a feeling that we are working towards a common goal, right? All that happens with the help of a tool or the processes that we follow. And the key thing here is to improve the author productivity by reducing the redundant work that they had to do earlier, right? By using or by following the structured authoring mechanism. And also giving them freedom to think just about content and not the platforms or the formats to which this content will be delivered, right? By separation of content from presentation, right? It may be a different way, but a new and efficient way to work together, right? And then talking about these aspects, processes, architecture, right? How do we demonstrate this? So Adobe offers a solution. The goal of this solution is to provide easy authoring experience with capabilities to manage the content and do a review with subject matter experts via a simple user interface, and ultimately the furnished content is published to the variety of delivery channels, right? So we are going to use an example. We are going to use Adobe CCMS to showcase those capabilities and productivity gains that you can get from the review and collaboration process. Right? It's a CCMS or a component content management system. We call it XML documentation. It is an online tool accessible to users over internet via web browser. Right? Once you set it up for your organization, to work together no matter where you are and leverage authoring, managing, review content capabilities of the system. All those are inbuilt. Right? You can capture feedback and incorporate that without creating physical or digital copies, and hence saving time by not managing and tracing the history of the changes yourself. Right? Understanding who requested the changes with the timeline on when that change was requested, which really gets lost in emails or papers with manual ways of reviewing. Right? So with the system, all that is getting tracked. So the one who is incorporating the comments or changing the content can always go back and see the history of changes within this system. Right? So we have talked about why this is so important. Right? So I'm going to show how easy it is to overcome the challenges we spoke about with this example or with Adobe CCMS, to allow authors to assign review tasks to the reviewers group, track the progress, incorporate review comments, and repeat the process if needed, and complete the workflow all online. Right? So a quick glimpse of how it will look like. This is kind of a review screen snapshot from Adobe CCMS, right, where subject matter experts can work on an interface like this, which should be simple yet powerful, which allows them to give feedback via highlighting the content, striking through some content paragraphs in it, or inserting the content still in read-only mode, and also maybe adding some comments. Right. So we will see this very shortly in practical. So what I will do is I will go into the system to do a demonstration. All right. So I think in the previous session also you were looking at the same interface. This is an Adobe Experience Manager interface. The login screen working over the web, login through browser. You come to this interface, and then what you can do is we will first look at some of the content which already exists in the system. Right. So all the content that is stored in the system, as I said, we are talking about structured content authoring. It's in DITA formats. The content is in DITA format, and the CCMS is actually a DITA CCMS. So you can manage your DITA content here, and then review and collaborate content which is authored in DITA format. Right. So There are a lot of features in here, but what we'll do is we'll quickly go into the editor, right? First to look at what the content is authored by the author here, right? For which we will start the review. So what I'll do is I'll go into the XML editor to access the repository, right? And I think I have already bookmarked one of the content that I want to demonstrate here. So it's this, or I can actually browse the repository, right? It's somewhere in my samples content folder. I can definitely open that content from here. But once my publication is open, let's see how it looks like, what the content is, what I'm trying to review. So this content has one fancy cover image and some content which has some tables, inline styles like bold italics, some images in it, bulleted lists, some links, footnotes, etc. Right. So this is how my content looks like, and I've already authored this content. So I will not talk about the authoring experience here, which is altogether a different topic. So considering my content is ready from the authoring side, now I want to get the reviewers to come into this and start looking at the content and give me comments if there are any. Right. So what I will do is before even I go into the review screen that we just showed, right? If you remember, we just spoke about in one of the first few slides that there are few things or complexities that we have to solve before we start a review. One of them was we should identify the content that we want to review. So we know this is the publication that we want to review. The second is we should know what team is going to review it. And the third is what are the deadlines of my review tasks to complete, right? So the answer to the first question is here, we know the content. The second and the third question, how do we manage or how do we onboard the team who is going to review the content? And how do we define those deadlines, right? So there is a concept of projects in Adobe Experience Manager. What we will do is we'll go into the projects here, right? And we are going to create a new project, which is going to be a DITA project here. And we will call it as DITA World Content Review, for example. And what I can do here is I can define a due date. For example, by 12th of October, I should be able to review all the content. And then I can add team members to my project. So these could be some users which already exist in the system. So I can choose a few of them as reviewers, right? And add more, maybe I'll add 2 or 3 reviewers here and maybe add Kerry as well. So I have got 3 reviewers onboarded, right? Which will be assigned some review tasks, which they have to complete by this date. Right. Once I have done this, I will click on create. So my project is created. Right. So once my project is there, what I can also do is I can go into this tomorrow. Maybe I want to add more team members. I can do that. Right. And if I want to see what tasks are running in this, right now there is none. So I don't see anything here. But if I look at another project which was already existing, right, if I go inside this, hopefully there are some tasks, right? So for this project, if I go inside this, I see there are 2 tasks which are already running. And if I look at one of those tasks, I can open the status. And this is how the review dashboard works. Like it gives you a view on who all reviewers are responsible for reviewing the content. And what is the status? Have they actually started reviewing the content or not? If they have, how many comments they have left, how many topics they have reviewed, and when did they last access the content, right? This kind of view can be seen on the review dashboard. Right, let me see if it is there on the other one. Yeah, so you can see this. So in this case, Kerry is still doing the review, Iris has completed it, Carlene has never started it, right? So we'll see a similar dashboard for our review task. So I have my team onboarded, I have the deadlines defined, I have the project created, and I have my content identified. Now what I can do is I can click on create review task for my publication, right? It's right there on the web editor, right? So either using this, maybe I just have to refresh, but there are multiple ways to start this review task. I can also start it from my other panel here, right? So what I'll do is I'll give my review task a title, right? And then I know that I have created a project, right? So I will choose the project that I created just now, and then I can assign this to either all the reviewers of my project. So I created 3 review or 3 members of my project. So all those 3 are shown here. So it might be possible for this particular review task. I know that maybe Iris is on PTO, right? So I might have to just assign this to Carlene and Kerry, right? I choose the reviewers like that. But imagine if there are like 50 reviewers who will have to review it. I might not be interested in selecting each one of them one by one. So what happens is whenever you create a project, it also creates a group of all reviewers. So you can simply say, assign it to all the reviewers who are part of this project, right? And then you can also define a due date for this particular task, right? So that's also possible. And then what you can also do is, because let me actually go to the next screen. So all the topics and files which are part of your publication are shown in a list here, which means because your content was broken down into smaller topics or modules or files, so you can also start a review only on some of those. For example, you know that legal topic was already reviewed. I don't need to re-review it, right? So I can select or deselect only few of those topics to make sure I'm just sending the content for review which has been updated. I don't need to send the entire publication again. Okay, so when I do that, what I can also do is on the next screen, I can selectively give or assign the review task to individual users for specific topics. Because maybe the legal topic has to be reviewed only by Iris. It may be possible the others are not experts on this particular topic. So I can simply remove this, right? And then choose a specific reviewer, which could be Iris here, right? And say, okay. Now, when I am doing this, it may be possible that the other reviewers who are part of this review, they might find something on the legal topic and they want to review, right? So even though I have not assigned the review task to them, the other reviewers should also be able to contribute on that review task. And that is what this option is on the first screen. Allow assignees to review any topic, which means that even though in this list of reviewers, someone doesn't have access to one of those topics, they can still go ahead and comment on that, right? So you can select this checkbox and enable that feature, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select only few of those topics here, right? To showcase you one thing that even if I have selected only few of the topics, on the review screen, I will still be able to see the entire publication, because what we think is that the context is very important, because these topics can be used in lot many publications, which is one of the values of DITA, right? You can reuse the same topic in multiple publications. So in the context of the publication, it is important to review it properly, and while reviewing, we should be aware of the entire publication, right? So even though I'm selecting only 5, we will show you how you can still go ahead and see the entire publication. Now, another important thing when you are starting a review is that, like, not only you can start a review on a topic, but you can also choose the version of particular topic. For example, I have a general description topic which I frequently update for every release of my publication, right? So release over release, I might update general description, but I may close, or I may have already published one of the previous versions of general description topic. And while that publication is already live, I feel that there is a correction I need to make, right? So I can always go back into the history and use this particular version or the older version which was part of my released publication, and then do a review for that, right? So I can do a review for different publications or different versions of a publication, right? So that is also possible. So when I go next, what I'll do is I will still keep all the reviewers who can review the tasks, and then I will create a review, right? Once it is done, the system sends a notification to all the reviewers that a review task has been assigned to you. And what we can do is we will actually open two things here. One for the author so that he can start seeing the review comments. And what we will do is we will go into the notification section. So you can always configure email notifications on the system, but the system also gives you an inbox within the Adobe Experience Manager. So that can be accessed via clicking the bell icon here. So I'll go to view all notifications, and you will see that I was the initiator administrator, right? So I have the initiating task with me, but there are 3 tasks which are assigned to Carlene, Kerry, and Iris, right, respectively, because I assigned it to all the reviewers. Now, when I look at one of those, like the review dashboards, sorry. So if I go to the review dashboard here, you will see there is one task which is in progress assigned to 3 people. And if I look at the status, none of them has started it, right? Now, what I will do is I will open an incognito window to log in as Iris to see what task has been assigned to me. So I will impersonate as Iris here. When I log in as Iris, you will see there is only one notification, only one task assigned to me, which is Data World Review 1. So to see what is inside this particular review task, I will open this task. And you will see that there are 4 to 5 topics that I started a review on, right? And rest of them are actually in a disabled mode. But on the right side, I can definitely see all the topics in the context. So anything which is not initiated for a review is grayed out, but you can always read the content, right? Only 4 of those topics which are enabled will be shown like this. What you can do in this particular view is that you can highlight some of the content, right, and give a comment that requires legal review, for example, right, and so that it can be sent to the legal team. And then maybe you want to insert some more text. So I may say that added more content, right? And maybe you want to suggest a deletion, right? For example, this particular thing is not needed, so you might suggest a deletion as a reviewer, right? While I am adding some comments or suggesting insertions and deletions, all those things are recorded on the right side, right? So, so as an author, or sorry, as a reviewer, I have added some comments. But now, for example, the author also wants to see what is happening, right? So, for example, on this particular topic, legal topic, there are 2 comments which were added, right? So as soon as something is under review for that particular topic, you will see a review tab on the right side as an author. So any comments which are added by the reviewer are shown here, right? So the author can also reply. For example, we'll do incorporate these, for example. Right? As soon as something has been updated on the comment section, you will see without refreshing the page, the reviewers will see that there is a reply, right? So there is a reply which has been added to it. Now, there could be other reviewers as well who are working on the system, right? So I will quickly go out of this and log in as Carlene quickly. So Carlene also sees that there is a review task. I think there are others as well. So if there are overdue tasks, you will see that the due date will give an alert that this has been an overdue task, and a notification can also be sent like that. Now, as Carlene, maybe I will add more text, right? So Carlene and Iris, both of them are working together, right? So you see all the comments coming from them. Now, let's say this particular topic has been reviewed, right? As the author or the initiator, I can go to the review dashboard. I will see there are 2 review comments which have come from 2 different authors on the legal topic, right? So I might want to incorporate those things, right? So what I will do is I'll go to the legal topic in the authoring mode here, right? Open the review panel and open the side-by-side review, right? I see that, yes, there are some changes which are recommended. So let's incorporate those. What I will do is I will import those comments. So remember, now I am not manually updating my content here, right? Just like how the Word documents or PDF documents are received offline, I had to update my source copy manually. I'm not doing that. Here is the difference, right? So I will incorporate or import those comments from the authors into my author view here, right? So as soon as I did it, all those changes are there, right? Then I can close the side-by-side view, right? Those changes are here. Those changes can be seen in the changes tab. Now what I can do simply here is I can say, okay, I will accept this change. As soon as I accept, the marker goes away, right? And I will actually reject this change and also reject this change, for example, right? I just kept one here. I will save this change here and save this as a new version called review comments incorporate, right? I will save this version. Now the version number is 1.2 now, right? I as an initiator know that I have incorporated review comments. So I will go to the review project and I will update the version there so that the reviewers can know what content has been updated, right? So I will open the project task, right? I'll go to the content tab. For the legal review, I will, or for the legal topic, I will update the version to 1.2 and say update. And as soon as I do that, you will see that the reviewer screen, I was logged in as I actually typed in something, but so if I look at this legal topic here, all the markers are gone, right? I had deleted something, I added something, all those are not there. So as a reviewer, I might be surprised what has happened, right? Why my comments are gone. So an indication on the review screen is that on the right side, anything which has been incorporated will have a thumbs up or thumbs down, right? Which means thumbs up means this has been accepted, the other 2 are rejected, right? And right now it is very small change, so I definitely recognize what has happened. But in some cases, when there are a lot of changes, you want to actually see a difference between the changes that I recommended and the changes which are brought in by the author with the update. Because it could also be possible that author has also added some more changes to the content, right? So to see that difference in the review panel, what you can do is you can click on the time warp icon, right? It will show you that what all things have been added or deleted, right? So I added add more content, so it's been highlighted in green color here, right? And if I'm satisfied, I will actually go out of this and say close this view. I'm good with it. I'll close and actually complete the review, for example, right? So I will say complete my task. I'm good with it, right? As soon as I do it, you will see that on the projects in the review dashboard.
Hi Divraj, Stefan here.
Yes, Stefan.
If I may quickly jump in, because we only have 10 minutes left and quite a lot of questions. How much time do you need?
I was at the last step.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So on the dashboard, you will see that Carlene has already completed, right? Iris and Kerry are doing it. So They can also continue working on it, and they can see how, or the initiator can see how this review is progressing. But while all this is happening, as I said, you can also track the status on how my entire publication is looking like, right? With that, what I can do is I can go to my publishing dashboard or publication dashboard and see a report that indicates out of all of my topics, right, how many are in draft, how many are in review, and once they are reviewed, the count will actually increment here, right? And all those document states are shown here so that I can see, okay, this one is in review, good enough. Maybe I want to start review on others. I can always do that from the topics tab as well. I can choose the topics and start a review on that, right? So that's how you actually are able to make sure you can start a review on a structured content, which makes sure that it is free of the presentation, right? And once your content is reviewed, you can publish it into any format or any channel. There are publishing capabilities in the system, which we are not talking about yet. But with structured authoring, yes, you can author, review, you can create projects, you can track status, you can also make sure the content is updated, or the online contributions are made. There are notifications sent to the reviewers for regular follow-ups and getting the tasks done in time, right? So that brings me to the end of the demo, and I would say thanks all for listening to this and looking at the presentation. And if you have any questions, yes, I think there are. I will cover that, but you can always reach out to me at divrsing@adobe.com, or you can reach out to techcomm@adobe.com for any of the queries related to that. Right, Stefan, let me look at the questions I can address to, or do you want to call out any unanswered questions?
Yeah, let me go through that. We had a question from John or Jenny Cassis. What happens if one topic is sent by author number 1 to reviewer number 1, and then by author number 2 to another reviewer group 2, because the topic is reused in 2 DITA maps? Or can author number 2 even send it anymore to review number 2 if the topic already went to review number 1? Whoa.
Right. So because there are two things, right? Sorry, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. So you can always start multiple reviews on the same topic, right? The intent could be different. Maybe you want to start a review on different version of the same topic, right? Which I showed can happen. But even on a single version, yes, you can start multiple reviews on the same topic because the context is different. Yes, you can do that.
Okay. Then Ryan Nayak was asking, can a reviewer reject a doc draft?
Yes, they can reject, and the workflows by default, what happens is it initiates a parallel review wherein all the reviewers will get a review task. Even though one reviewer rejects it, by default it does not terminate the workflow, but this workflow can be customized as you want. If you want to terminate the entire workflow as soon as one has rejected, yes, you can do that.
Okay. Then there is another question from Nayak. I hope I spelled the name right. Is there versioning of the doc for multiple reviews?
Can you say the question again? Sorry, Stefan.
Is there versioning of the document for multiple review?
Yes, and I showed that you can always choose the version that you want to review. And in this system, like Adobe CCMS, you also have the concept of baselines. So baseline corresponds to a specific release version number of a publication. You can also start a review based on the baseline, which is selected versions of the topics which are part of the publication that is published. For example, iPhone 7 has a different version of the topics and iPhone 8 can have a different versions. So you can start a review of 2 different versions of the iPhone manuals by using the right versions that are selected. Yes, you can do that.
Okay. And Liz is asking, what tool is used for reviews? Can reviewers use a tool to review content, or will everyone have to buy a license? We currently do interactive reviews in Adobe Acrobat, which use free reader software. This is a low-cost solution that gives all the advantages of sharing comments in real time.
Right. So I think since this entire tool is online, you need to have login access to the application which is set up for your organization. Yes, it is a user license-based system, but there are options. You can always reach out to techcomm at adobe.com. Our sales team will be happy to give you all the options.
Okay. And from Nadine Murray asks, how are reviewers included in the system? What if you need a review from someone who is not in the system? That is basically a follow-up question to that a little bit.
Right. Since all this content is in the central system, and that's the whole idea. If the reviewers are offline, and if they want to export the content, then getting the content back into the system means like you are creating a copy and you are manually incorporating the review comments. Right. That's what we want to avoid.
And Nora Smart is asking, do all users have to have licenses for AEM in order to use the review function? That's also, again, a little bit the same question. How is AEM implemented? Is it company-wide by seed? I apologize for asking a question that has already been covered. I haven't been able to attend much of the conference. So do all users... The question is, do all users have to have licenses for AEM in order to use the review function? How is AEM implemented? Is it company-wide or by seat?
So yes, it's a user license-based system, and AEM is set up as an application server which is accessible to all the users. They don't have to set this up on their local machines. The central server where AEM is set up can be accessed using a browser. You don't need any softwares on your machine to access AEM.
Yeah. And Jolene Jernberg, who was also speaking yesterday, on Tuesday, we have added our reviewers into AEM with reviewer permissions. I believe this function is a part of the XML for Adobe Experience Manager package. So that is more a comment on answer.
And Stefan, we have a question at the top of the list from Jared, which I think is probably of interest to many people that we've got in the audience. But he's saying that he uses Jira for his sprints and has documentation subtasks attached to Jira. Can AEM interface with Jira and sync the review status with a Jira subtask?
So it would be a custom integration, but one thing which I forgot to actually show you is that if you have any supporting documents that you want to, that the reviewers want to attach to the comments, right? So the comments also has a ability to add some attachment, which the reviewers want to give for supporting documents. But for Jira artifacts and syncing the status from Jira, it would be a custom integration. It's not available out of the box.
Sounds like a great suggestion for an integrator and developer for something that would be widely used given the use of Jira among the AEM audience.
Oh, yes. I think those kinds of integrations within AEM, definitely, I think there are some plugins which are available, but specifically to the review tool, that's not available.
And Matt, there's also another question from Raish Nayak. Can reviewers see other reviewers' comments while a review is valid? I think that is something worth answering as well.
Yes, and we, I think I was able to show you one example when Carleen and Iris both were commenting. Both were able to see each other's comments in the review panel while the review was ongoing, even if the review was closed. After the review was complete, for audit purposes, you can always go back and see the review comments for the older reviewers or older reviews. Yeah.
There are so many questions, so I hope the next speaker, Jan Grad, will be okay if we extend here a little bit to overtime. Matt, there's another question from Anuradha Kupusamy. What do you think?
Reviewer adding a couple of pages of new content. So if you have a reviewer that wants to either have something revise or wants to create something that would be larger than what we think of as a comment, what's the workflow and the kind of the recommended procedure for that?
Right. So in those cases, when the comments are larger, if a document makes sense, and that's what really I was talking about, I missed to cover, you can always attach a PDF or a Word document or other documents to your comment, so that the author can always access those comments or the attachments to see why that comment was made or see more details around that comment. So attachments are possible while you're commenting in the review screen.
Excellent.
And can you attach documents to a comment?
Yes.
I think that is what the question is also about, right?
Yes.
That's what I heard the response to be.
Yeah. Then Liz is asking, how do I edit suggested text when it is included? Not sure if I understand that question.
Well, you could always accept the change, and then make an edit to that changed content. It depends on whether the comment was a very light modification that you mostly agreed with, or if it's something that only slightly applies. So you would decide whether you would reject it and make it manually, or accept it and then modify it. You'd have those options.
And the authors can always add more content to it, and when they add it, they can, because all the comments added by reviewers are accessible in the web editor for the author. Author can add content, and they can also comment on the reviewer's comment to reviewers to be aware why additional text was added. Right, so that's possible.
Excellent.
I lost a little bit control, Matt. Did we answer the question if reviewers see the reviews in time while a review is running? Do they see the question is if they see each other commenting in real time?
Yeah. Who'd have thought that our review within the AEM system would be the clear winner for number of questions in the question and answer pod for the entire conference? Yeah, it shows how important it is to our audience, though, right? That they all need to address review. And clearly it's a pain point, no matter what your current system. Being able to effectively comment is a key component. That's where, being able to connect. Can you imagine having your AEM and JIRA systems speaking to each other? It'd be fantastic.
Right. And one of the questions which is
so important. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just trying to answer one of the questions where it's been asked, like, is it possible to update the version which is reviewed based on comments and still see the comments, but with the new updated content? Yes, and that's exactly what I showcased in this. Once the recording is available, you can see the demo. That's exactly what was happening. I updated the version, updated the content, but I was still able to see the comments from the older version on which the review was initially started. Yes, you can do that.
Excellent.
That was related to the question from Liz, right?
From Kasia.
Okay.
Divraj, there was also an observation, and I think Kirk earlier was, maybe a little tongue in cheek, but recognizing that this would be an amazing advantage would be to allow an AEM project status or alerts or reviews, whatever it might be, whatever activity within AEM might generate an alert for an app, for a phone, for an Apple Watch. What do you see as I made the observation that perhaps IFTTT could recognize those events and then generate activity based on that. Do you see any straight line between activity within AEM and alerting systems outside of the AEM ecosphere?
Interesting. I mean, yes, that sounds very interesting. Yes, we can definitely find use cases around that. But specifically review these notifications, I think there are ways to send out these notifications. Two are already available out of the box, like inbox and also the email. Can be extended, yes.
Yeah, so maybe an email could easily generate an IFTTT activity that would then get sent to your watch.
Right. There are a couple